Democratic leaders, civil rights groups, those in favor of immigration rights and civil liberties, may be under attack by this Trump administration, including led by Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem in the Department of Justice. But they are fighting back. They're fighting back in the streets. They're fighting back in front of ICE detention centers, and they may be going away in handcuffs, but not before they register their protest, before they get their cases up before a federal judge or jury and have their First Amendment rights, and therefore our First Amendment rights, protected by extension. We've moved into the next phase of Donald Trump's dictatorship, an attempt to crush dissent. First, it was the full throttle assault on media companies and the press following the death of Charlie Kirk and in the name of Charlie Kirk. Now we have simultaneously the continuous assault on First Amendment rights, on the rights of peaceably assemble, the right to protest, the right to seek redress of our grievances to our government, all under attack. Two major stories, we'll put them together in one in the last 48 hours. One, you had over 71 people, including more than 11 elected officials in New York, arrested during protests. At the same time, or similarly, in Chicago, the shock troops of Donald Trump used pepper balls and tear gas and arrested people who were protesting ICE operations in Chicago. It must come to an end. Federal courts are going to have to step forward the way they did during the 1960s and the civil rights movements, especially in the blue states, to protect our civil liberties. Every time you see somebody who is stepping in front of the cannon fire, they're doing it for us. They're doing it to protect our civil liberties. They are us, except they are on the receiving end of the abuse. We have a government. By the way, did I mention we're on Legal AF? This is Saturday afternoon on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popac. I'm glad you're here. We're building this community with our bare hands and together. And we're rushing into the burning building of our democracy and trying to save it. And so let's start in New York, or start with the statements by Homeland Security and ICE, which is any quote unquote assault on an ICE officer will be met with a felony charge. They've also started to define assault as being even filming. They think filming their operations is a quote unquote threat and interference, which allows them to try to ratchet it up with phony charges with their complicit prosecutors in the Department of Justice who have no ethics because they work for the most corrupt Department of Justice in history. And so when you have JD Vance, I almost said the president, soon, the vice president of the United States. And remember this and tag him with this if he's ever the front runner to be the Republican committee or the Republican candidate for president. He said out loud just this week that civil rights groups, the American Civil Liberties Union, Democracy Forward, all affiliated with the Legal AF, that they are domestic terrorist organizations. Stephen Miller wants the MAGA to go out and crush, as we've seen before, make them criminally liable for their promoting and defending civil liberties. That's all you need to know about the fascist dictatorship that is the Trump administration. The fact that the vice president would think it was a safe space for him to call civil liberties groups and civil rights groups, which are the bedrock of the protection mechanism of our society, a domestic terrorist movement. That's all you need to know. Now let's go to New York, where 71 people, I'll show you a clip now, it'll run while I'm talking, 71 people arrested. Let me tell you who of the 11 representatives in New York, political leaders, all Democrat, here's who were arrested for demanding the ability to provide oversight and go into the ICE detention centers in New York. They were refused. While other protesters were doing some other things, I think they were blocking the exit for certain vans to stop the transfer and transit of immigrants and migrants. But the state senators here who have their badge of honor because they're defending our liberties, are State Senators Julia Salazar, Jabari Brisport, Gustavo Rivera, State Representatives in New York, Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, Marcela Mitañez, Emily Gallagher, Claire Valdez, Tony Simone, Robert Carroll, and Stephen Raga, along with Brad Lander, who's the controller of the state of New York, the chief financial officer for the state of New York. We also have Jermaine Williams, and as I said, Representative Tony Simone. While that's all going on, and the government right on cue attacking the Democrats for protesting ICE, and anyone that's trying to act for immigration reform or for police reform, they're now considered domestic terrorists by this organization. Then we have in those subsequent hours what happened in Chicago, with pepper ball sprays and tear gas being used against lawful First Amendment protesters. Let's play the clip. Okay. First, we have to process what's happening in real time. Then we have to connect it together to a broader plan and scheme by the Trump administration, which has already been outed inadvertently or otherwise by JD Vance, where they're going after civil rights and immigration rights and police reform groups, and labeling them domestic terrorist movements in order to ratchet up prosecutions and indictments and arrests of these people, and then it's got to get sorted out in federal courts. Luckily, federal judges in the states where these operations are happening, like in Chicago and in New York, blue cities and blue states, are protecting these people. They're dismissing the indictments. And if they're not doing it, juries are doing it. We just had a case earlier this week where a jury in LA on, again, federal assault charges because an ICE agent claims he was assaulted by Brian Brito. Turns out the only video that the jury got to see was the ICE agent assaulting Brito and shoving him. See, they're also baiting and goading the protesters. That's why you got to keep your powder dry to assault them. It's almost like hit me, and saying disgusting things under their breath, shoving them, putting them into compromising positions. And then any little resistance, an eyebrow goes up and boom, they're arrested and indicted. Fortunately, juries are not buying this. I have having been a trial lawyer for 35 years, having tried dozens of jury trials, I have a lot of faith in the jury system, in the ability, it depends what city and state we're in, but in general, I think even if a prosecutor is overreaching, then the federal judge will find that the indictment doesn't fit and will dismiss charges. Even if it goes to jury trial, the juries are resoundingly rejecting the Trump administration over and over again, whether it's in D.C., and grand jury's the same. In order to get an indictment, it's got to go through a grand jury process. You can only hold somebody on an arrest on a criminal indictment or a criminal complaint, that's issued by the prosecutor for only so long. You've got to get it before a grand jury. That's our system. And the grand jury of 15 to 25 people, depending upon your state, have to vote by majority to indict. So we are fortunate that they're not buying what the prosecutors are selling. When Jeanine Pirro in D.C. says, this guy threw a sandwich, it was a very heavy sandwich at this ICE agent, felony assault. And the grand jury's like, no. She tried 3 times, couldn't get a grand jury at all to bring those charges. And that's happening over and over again. So first line of defense is grand juries going, nope. Then if that comes out of a grand jury with indictment, second line of defense is federal judges on a motion to dismiss filed by the defense saying nope on all or some of the charges. And if it goes beyond that, then you leave it to the defense lawyers and these rights groups who are under attack with their law firms to defend those defendants, in court and make all the defense arguments like vindictive prosecution and overcharging and selective enforcement. There's a whole bunch of defenses you can bring as a criminal defense lawyer. And even if it survives that, the next line of defense is the jury. And if the jury doesn't do the right thing, the next line of defense is the appellate courts in that in that district, and then failing that, perhaps at the United States Supreme Court. But there's a number of firewalls, and we're covering them all, and we're supporting them all. See, by being here together on Legal AF, here on our Substack, if you're a full-fledged, full card-carrying member of Legal AF, Substack podcast, and YouTube, this gives energy and support to the groups and energizes them to get up every day and fight for civil liberties. That's why we have Democracy Forward on here as a playlist with Skye Perryman. I've got a video up today. First video of the day is my interview with the founder of Democracy Forward. They have almost 90 cases against the Trump administration. They just brought one that's related to the Jimmy Kimmel First Amendment violations. You need to hear from these people, and it emboldens them. They want to come on here and speak to you and brief you here on Legal AF. So stay with us. Hit the subscribe button here. Come over to Legal AF Substack, where I catch you up on all on the cases in terms of updates in real time with 2 lives a day. And I'm glad you're here with us. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popac. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.